In 1994, a 19-year-old mathematics prodigy walked into the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton. He had come to meet one of the world's greatest mathematicians, Jean Bourgain, the newly awarded Fields Medal winner. Tao stood outside Bourgain's office. He raised his hand. Then he stopped. He never knocked. Why? Because he felt his question wasn't good enough. He walked away. At that moment, he had no idea that 12 years later he would win the Fields Medal himself. But the biggest transformation in his career wasn't becoming a better mathematician. It was learning that the best answers often begin with other people. Terence Tao was a child prodigy. He studied high school mathematics at the age of 7. He attended university classes at 9. At 12, he became one of the youngest gold medalists in the history of the International Mathematical Olympiad. For years, his greatest strength was simple. He could solve difficult problems by himself. Over time, this success shaped the way he learned. Before exams, he focused only on what he believed was essential. When he encountered material he didn't understand, his first instinct wasn't to master it, it was to find another path around it. If he could still reach the correct answer, why spend time on the rest? For a long time, this strategy worked remarkably well. He even chose not to learn Fortran programming, which caused him to fail a course. He once had an unusual experience during a quantum mechanics exam. Yet none of these setbacks prevented him from graduating at the top of his class. Again and again, life seemed to confirm one idea. If you're smart enough, you can always find the answer on your own. Everything changed when Tao began his PhD at Princeton. Like every doctoral student, he had to pass a comprehensive qualifying examination. Most students prepared for months. Tao studied for only 2 weeks. He trusted the learning strategy that had always worked before. But the exam wasn't testing whether he knew the answers. It was testing whether he understood the structure behind them. Why is this theorem true? Under what conditions does it hold? When does it fail? How does it connect to other ideas? Tao realized something surprising. He remembered many theorems. He could often reproduce the proofs. But when the examiners kept asking why, he found himself struggling. The questions became simpler, then simpler still. Eventually, they were discussing basic definitions. There was also an unexpected stroke of luck. One examiner misunderstood Tao's research area. The prepared questions no longer fit. So the examiner switched to fundamental topics, topics Tao had happened to review just days before. He passed, but only barely. After the exam, his advisor, Elias Stein, didn't yell. He didn't lecture. He simply said, "Today's performance was disappointing." Years later, Tao would say that it was exactly what he needed to hear. The exam had exposed a weakness that intelligence alone couldn't hide. He knew how to reach the answer. But he didn't always understand why the answer worked, or where it would stop working. For the first time, he realized that real mathematical understanding wasn't about collecting results. It was about understanding the entire landscape behind them. After that experience, Tao began to change. He spent more time discussing ideas with classmates. He listened carefully to how other mathematicians approached problems. He filled in the gaps he had once ignored. The change wasn't immediate. The first research problem assigned by his advisor took nearly 5 years to solve. For someone who had spent his entire life finding answers quickly, this was something new. He had to learn to live with uncertainty, to remain in the uncomfortable space of "I don't know." And slowly, that became one of his greatest strengths. Years later, the unopened door finally had a different ending. In 2001, Terence Tao published a paper together with Jean Bourgain and Net's Katz. The mathematician whose office he had once been afraid to enter had become his collaborator. But that was only the beginning. Tao started collaborating with mathematicians from many different fields: harmonic analysis, partial differential equations, number theory, combinatorics, ergodic theory, and many others. His research expanded far beyond his original speciality. Looking back, Tao said that many of his research questions didn't come from thinking alone. They emerged through conversations. One person introduced a new method. Another explained why an approach would never work. Someone else completely changed the question itself. Gradually, his philosophy shifted. He no longer searched only for answers. He searched for people who saw the world differently. By the time Tao received the Fields Medal in 2006, he had already collaborated with more than 30 researchers. He didn't stop there. In 2007, he began publishing research notes on his blog. Not only polished results, but unfinished ideas. Incomplete proofs. Failed attempts. Open questions. Then, in 2009, he helped launch the Polymath Project. Instead of solving problems behind closed doors, mathematicians from around the world could work together online. Someone proposed an idea. Someone else found a counterexample. Another person refined the argument. Small contributions combined into major breakthroughs. The young man who once couldn't knock on a single office door had now opened the door to the entire mathematical community. Many people think collaboration means dividing work. First, you solve the problem. Then you ask others to help finish it. But that's not what transformed Terence Tao. The most powerful collaboration happens much earlier. It begins before anyone has the answer. It begins when you're willing to admit, "I don't know." When you allow another perspective, another experience, another way of thinking to enter the conversation. Because the right collaborator doesn't just help you solve a problem. Sometimes they help you ask a better question. Talent may determine how fast one person can go, but the greatest discoveries are often made by people willing to think together. Perhaps that was Terence Tao's greatest breakthrough. Not a theorem, but a new way of searching for the truth. What do you think is more important for great discoveries? Individual genius or collaboration? And leave a comment below.